Good evening. Welcome to the September 18th Public Works session of the Rockville Center Board of Education. Please rise for the pledge. Thank you. Mr. Gavin, I'll turn it over to you for your superintendent's report.
Thank you, President Barry. First and foremost, may I say happy birthday to President Barry. May I say happy birthday to Ms. Rehack. Happy birthday. And may I say a very happy birthday, a couple days late, to Mary Lou Celebrity. Congratulations, everybody. I might be in trouble for Mary Lou after that, but that's okay. So a couple things. Number one, I know that we have been having trouble with our high school auditorium air conditioning, so I do want to let the public know that this is a priority that we've been trying to evaluate all of the different potential solutions for this. All of them are expensive and time consuming, so we are going to try to provide the board and the public a full update at the first October meeting, okay? Second, turning to some very good news. Eleanor Rubin was selected as a scholar artist, one of 20 selected across Long Island. She'll be featured in Newsday in February. We are incredibly proud to announce as well that 4 of our students have been named All-State Musicians. Congratulations to Malachi Byrne-Sharoff, Rory Zuckerman, James Herard, and Sophia Grunfeld. Congratulations to all 4. These students will be performing at the All-State Winter Conference in Rochester this summer. I don't know if that's an honor because Rochester is really cold in December, but that's okay. And we will be honoring these students at a future board meeting. More good news. Please join me in congratulating Keith Gamache on being selected as the inaugural recipient of the Arts Supervisors Association Established Educator Award. We just found this out. That's hot off the press. That happened 4 o'clock today, 4 o'clock today. This prestigious new award honors pre-K-12 visual art educators who exemplify leadership in their field by consistently dedicating their time, effort, and expertise towards the improvement of art education in Nassau County Public Schools. This award will be presented at the first annual event called Framing the Future, celebrating the arts and education on Thursday, October 9th at the Hofstra Museum of Art. So we're super excited for Mr. Gamache. As you know, Mr. Gamache has been a leader and a fixture here at Southside High School for a very long time. Not only is he a gifted teacher of the arts, but he also has the left side of the brain too, because he teaches a lot of our coding classes and has been one of our pioneers in terms of artificial intelligence. So congratulations, Keith. We're so proud of you. The other thing that we have on for tonight is we have our curriculum update. We do this every year where we try to update the board on some of the work that we've done so far this year. From last year on the summer. And then we will have our Ms. Nisler, and we will have Mr. Accardi do our presentation.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of the board, congratulations to all of our student artists, musicians, and Mr. Gamache. I believe before we get to the presentation, we have an acceptance of a gift this evening.
We do. So the 5th grade class of Covert from 2025, the class of 2025, gifted the gift of a sign to Covert, so we would like to accept that gift and thank the students for their generosity.
Thank you very much. Can I have a motion to accept the gift?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you to the 5th grade class of Covert. Turning to public work session, we have curriculum updates. Mr. Gavin?
As I kind of just introduced, probably a little prematurely, but we do have Ms. Nisler and Mr. Accardi here to talk about our curriculum updates for ELA, social studies, math, and science. Take it away, Liz.
All right. Hello, thank you for this opportunity to celebrate our progress and share with you our next steps regarding curriculum and instruction. Though Mr. Accardi and I just jumped on board last year, it's been amazing to see the results of the combined efforts of so many people over these past few years. We're pleased to present our updates tonight through the lens of continuous improvement. I put it on. There we go. Whoop. I got it. You got it. Go ahead. Okay. Okay. Continuous improvement always drives our work. And for any initiative we undertake, there's always a catalyst. whether it's internal, like deciding that we want to use a common language to help strengthen student writing,
or external, like IB, New York State, saying that changes are coming. At these times, we start by asking 4 key questions. What are the desired outcomes for our students? Meaning, what do we want to see students doing, saying, and producing? Or 2, how would it change instruction? In other words, what new approaches and strategies would teachers potentially need to implement? 3, the changes inform professional learning? What professional learning can we offer to best support our teachers and students? How will we measure success, lastly? What data will we analyze to see if we've achieved success?
Tonight we'll share how this cycle has guided our work in English, social studies, science, and math. In the following slides, we've organized our updates into 4 categories: curriculum development, professional learning, data informing instruction, and partnerships. These closely relate to the continuous improvement cycle that we just introduced, and they also represent the core work of the Curriculum and Instruction Office, as well as the strategic planning goals for the district. So across these 4 slides, you can see just how many curriculum projects were in the works this summer. For the K through 2, curriculum writers worked so diligently this summer to craft integrated units that align with those of grades 3 through 5. These units encourage students to ask and answer questions about the world around them. Questions like, how can I overcome challenges in kindergarten? Or how do communities use resources to grow in 2nd grade? And then the 3rd through 5th grade teachers worked on refining their integrated units and the assessments that they've built over the last 2.5 years. Other projects that started this summer, such as ELA 6 and 7's revision work, really revolved around embedding the professional learning that they received from Kate Roberts. We're looking forward to seeing teachers facilitate student-led book clubs, teach into specific strategies, and use progressions to differentiate instruction. There were many catalysts for embracing this approach. First, calls for more choice and more books of interest to engage students. And next, a recognition that students need to build their stamina in reading and writing and oracy. We also want them to gain confidence in their ability to think and apply skills independently. So through these instructional shifts, we expect to see students take more ownership of their reading, to engage in authentic and analytic conversations about texts, and demonstrate growth along those progressions. One 10th grade team that piloted the work found it both intriguing and daunting, but by the end, very worthwhile. And I've heard from 5th and 6th grade teachers that they've absolutely seen student engagement increase, and that there's a greater sense of independence coming from the students. So we're looking forward to continuing this work in the classrooms and with Kate. Regarding writing, the catalysts have been both internal and external. Teachers would love to have a common language and approach when working with students. And when we analyze the assessment data, we know our students would benefit from building their writing stamina, as seen from the constructed response data. Now, by and large, we outperform the region when we look at the 3 through 8 state exams and English Regents writing. At the same time, we see that students aren't necessarily getting full credit on the longer writing tasks, such as 4 credit responses or the Part 2 of the Regents. Please note, this is not an issue specific to us. This is a common issue. But to meet that need for a common language and approach, and this is across content areas, not just in English, we've turned to the writing revolution. So representatives from all buildings have taken the online training, and the feedback really has been wonderful, to the point where both the middle school and high school principals have decided to dedicate 6 hours of their prescribed professional learning to the writing revolution training. So, and then the elementary buildings will spend about 2 to 4 hours of their professional learning on the writing revolution. What's nice is that the teachers who completed the online training are now in a nice position to turnkey it, so some of them will be pairing up with administrators to facilitate sessions this year. Our goal for the teachers of all subjects is to embed the writing revolution strategies into their instruction. This will create a unified approach and it reinforces that all teachers are teachers of literacy. The state makes this expectation very clear in their standards and in their literacy briefs. So we expect to see students constructing clearer, more sophisticated sentences, organizing their thoughts logically, and applying these writing skills across the content areas. And through the repeated opportunities to write, to build their stamina and confidence levels. Of course, we'll continue to analyze student writing samples, constructive response data to measure the impact on student performance, and see what might be required for future professional learning. So while on the topic of reading and writing, I would like to thank the Rockville Center Ed Foundation for a grant that's going to allow Kate Cleese, she's the author of Regarding the Fountain. It's going to allow her to visit. Regarding the Fountain is a book our fourth graders read in their How Do We Express Ourselves unit. And Cleese will discuss with them how writing is an important form of self-expression and how authors can develop characters and plot through kind of unique text types, like embedding letters or embedding journal entries or newspaper clippings into a work of fiction. So I think it's going to be a great experience for the kids. Not going to lie, I'm super excited. I can't wait. Okay, shifting over to social studies. This is now year 2 of our curriculum review. Last year's review and analysis have already and will directly inform this year's work. So one key takeaway last year was the need for conceptual-based curriculum and instruction. So not only did the state identify this as a key shift when they released their framework, but we realized that there was an inconsistency on our end. So there's strong support for conceptual learning in the middle years program at the middle school, and then again with the IB diploma program in grades 11 and 12. However, this emphasis is not necessarily consistent in grades 9 and 10. So this is clearly an area for development, alignment, growth. And this was actually one reason that we decided to offer AP Human Geography this year. It's currently a new offering at the high school, and about 141 current 9th graders signed up for it. 3 of our social studies teachers participated in training at the end of last school year, and they spent the summer brainstorming and collaborating on a really wonderful curriculum. The course aligns nicely with state expectations, particularly the social studies practices, and it helps fill that conceptual learning gap in 9th grade. Now, because not all students are taking AP Human Geography, we agreed that Global 9 needed some revision. Again, to support conceptual learning, and in truth, to also create a bridge between it and AP Human Geography. Majority of students in the class are freshmen, right? They're taking their first college prep class. They may decide that this is absolutely the ideal challenge for them, or they may decide that maybe they need a little bit more time before they tackle a class like this. So by aligning the opening units, we are supporting those students who might want to rethink their initial decision, whether they want to shift into AP Human Geography or whether they want to shift from that into global. This will also entail conversations with 8th grade teachers to familiarize them with AP Human Geography so that they can determine how best to support students and prepare them for the possibility of AP Human Geography the following year. Regarding 10th grade, we'll be exploring the option of AP World History, and this will include registering teachers for training as well as revisions to the Global 10 curriculum. And as with any new course, considering continuous improvement, we'll gather and review anecdotal and quantitative data in order to determine, are there any refinements that are going to be needed to be made next year. In the meantime, I thank the 3 AP Human Geography teachers for taking on this challenge, all the work they've done, and I wish them and their students well. I would like to highlight some of our partnerships before turning things over to Mr. Riccardi. This year, we were able to extend the Benner's Farm colonial experience to 4th graders in all of the elementary buildings. Students got to experience preparing wool fibers for spinning yarn and grinding corn and other activities, and it was really a wonderful experience for them. And then coming up, thanks again to an Ed Foundation grant, each building will be able to bring in a New York Historical Society educator for a program or topic of choice. So, for example, Miss Danielle Garin, who's a 7th grade teacher at the middle school, she was the one who wrote the grant request, and she'd like to bring in an expert to discuss either the Revolutionary War or the Civil War, both of which are part of the curriculum. These New York historical educators come in, they bring artifacts, primary sources, and they facilitate activities for the students. So I'm excited to see what programs the different schools choose, and I thank Ms. Garin, the Ed Foundation, and New York Historical. It's my pleasure now to pass things over to my colleague, Mr. Guy Accardi. He's the Director of Science, Math, Technology, and since we've began as directors together, we've been working closely, supporting one another, finding points of alignment, and it's just been a pleasure working with him.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Ms. Nisler. Absolutely, we've been working very closely together every single day. And thank you for the opportunity to share with you the important updates on the continued growth of our mathematics program district-wide, as well as all the steps we've taken and plan to take in preparing for an upcoming science review this year. Let me begin by highlighting the progress we've made together as a district regarding our math curriculum. Over the past few years, we've engaged in thoughtful and ongoing review of our curriculum to ensure that our instruction is both rigorous and relevant to all students. While New York State released the next-gen mathematics standards, our teams carefully analyzed the state's crosswalk documents to identify shifts in Algebra 1 and geometry expectations. Last year, we extended that work into Algebra 2, aligning our curriculums with the state's clarifications and modifications. It's important to note that these standards were not completely a new set of standards, but rather refinements to existing Common Core framework. As we move forward, we will continue strengthening our curriculum across K-12. We are embedding the writing revolution strategies into math classrooms to improve students' ability to articulate their thinking and written responses. This will be observable both in classroom practice and in student achievement. We are also piloting Ready, Set, Math with 15 teachers in grades 3 and 4, focusing on Tier 2 and 3 learners to ensure diverse students' needs are met. Looking further ahead, in summer of 2027, we will begin curriculum writing for IB Math analysis and IB Math applications, equipping our students with skills and experiences that support global readiness. Alongside this, we will continue to refine our K-12 curriculum to remain aligned with state standards and the New York State Numeracy Brief's expectations. Additionally, we are exploring opportunities on how AI can be embedded in the classroom, the math classroom, ethically, without compromising thinking. To further enhance teaching and learning, our teachers are passionate and always looking to improve by embracing innovative practices and strategies in instruction. At the K-8 level, we have embedded building thinking classrooms, an instructional framework that engages students in collaboration, problem solving, and deep engagement in mathematical concepts. To support this, K-5 teachers have benefited from Annalise Records workshops and in-class modeling, while Brendan Scribner has worked with grades 6 through 8 teachers to help transform traditional instruction into more collaborative classroom settings. At the secondary level, we have provided targeted training for teachers and at Regents-level courses by focusing on scoring practices. We have improved accuracy, consistency, and the quality of feedback students receive, directly strengthening instruction and student outcomes. Of course, there is still work to be done where professional growth is concerned. We will continue to benefit from our partnerships with consultants. Annalise will extend her training into grades 3 through 5 this year, and Brendan Scribner will expand building thinking classrooms into the high school level. We are exploring opportunities for our elementary teachers to become certified as math recovery specialists with Math Recovery. This certification will allow us to provide earlier, more effective interventions for struggling students, while also building our own capacity for in-district professional learning. We've also seen real success in using data to guide teaching in courses like Algebra 1 and Geometry. Close analysis of assessment data has led to targeted instructional adjustments. For example, our mastery results for geometry have increased by over 10%. That's wonderful news. These adjustments have translated into stronger results for students across multiple grade levels. As we move forward, this has become an invaluable practice and will continue to be a pillar in our curriculum review process. In short, we have made tremendous strides aligning our curriculum with state standards and expectations, using data to inform instruction, investing in meaningful professional learning, and developing partnerships that open doors for our students, such as a partnership that we have with Malloy University, where our students enrolled in the new financial investments course have the opportunity to earn Bloomberg certification, an achievement that sets them apart in college and career readiness. This year marks a review year for our science curriculum. I'd like to share the journey that has brought us to this point, where we stand today, and the direction that we're headed in. Over the past few years, we have laid a strong foundation for this work. Our team has been diligent in aligning curriculum, instruction, and assessments with the New York State science standards, particularly with the science and engineering practices, the disciplinary core ideas, and the cross-cutting concepts, which make up the three-dimensional framework of science learning. At that same time, we introduced the New York State investigations for grades 3 through 8, ensuring that students across grade levels are engaging in authentic, hands-on science practices. During this past summer, our teachers engaged in collaboration and curriculum writing, creating a new biology and earth and space science curriculum to reflect these standards. As we enter the formal review year, our focus shifts towards reflection, refinement, and planning for the future. We will begin with grade level meetings to clarify the review's purpose, process, and expected outcomes, and to launch a systematic examination of curriculum. The Science Committee will conduct deep dives leading to actionable steps for continuous improvement. We are also engaging the community by collaborating with the PTA Curriculum Committee. Additionally, we are committed to upgrading our science research program and facilities to ensure that students have access to the resources they need for advanced study and success. We've provided professional learning focused on the administration of the New York State investigations in biology and earth science, as well as a deep dive of the New York State Science Standards. We've partnered with All Species Counseling to develop a storyline approach to biology instruction. And we've introduced Inner Orbit, an assessment platform that mirrors the three-dimensional framework to help teachers design assessments that parallel the New York State science assessments. This alignment has made a measurable impact. For example, the grade 5 science assessment results increased nearly 20% from last year. Training will expand to include administration of the New York State science investigations in chemistry and physics for next year, while continuing our work with the New York State science standards. This work will continue this year in preparing for the implementation of the new chemistry and physics courses aligned to the science standards for the start of next school year. Through ongoing analysis of student data, we've been able to make strategic instructional adjustments that have led to the stronger testing outcomes across K-12. We've also expanded opportunities for students beyond the classroom. Through a partnership with Hofstra University, our students can now earn 3 college credits in computational engineering. These partnerships not only strengthen our curriculum, but also inspire students to see themselves as future scientists and engineers. We have built a strong foundation by aligning curriculum to state standards, using data to guide instruction, and investing in teacher growth. Now, this is the review year. We have the opportunity to reflect on our progress, strengthen our practices, and strategically plan for the next phase of science education in Rockville Center. Our goal is to prepare every student not only to succeed on assessments, but to think, question, and explore like true scientists. Together with the commitment of our teachers, the curiosity of our students, and the support of our community, we are shaping a science program that is rigorous, engaging, and focused on the future. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you both. Comments or questions from board members?
Thank you. I have one comment or question for each of you, so whoever wants to go first. I appreciate the way you kicked this off with the idea of a catalyst, right? There's something that spurs us to review, whether that comes internally or externally. For example, science. I'll start with that. In year 1 of our district-wide pre-K to 12, K to 12 sort of review, we're looking from that bird's eye perspective, but that doesn't mean that there's not also regular revision going on at a certain grade level. For example, I'll never get used to calling it earth and space science, but earth science, and the changes to that, say, Regents exam. So I heard you mention that you're working through the writing revolution in math, and I wonder, are you considering, or maybe you'll include that as part of the recommendations as you look more closely into the science? Are you finding that like the changes in the Regents are more writing heavy, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Absolutely. That is definitely going to be part of the process as well. I want to include teachers with that as well. I think that's an important part of this process, is to get participation for all stakeholders. From what I've seen and heard from other directors and other districts who have implemented this last year, and through just our networking meetings that we've had, it's a very large part of the test is literacy. So being able to write and being able to read and comprehend and digest the material is very important, and it's what we're doing across all curricular. So that's no different for science.
Right, and interpreting data tables, right, at every level. So I wonder if we're seeing that, and maybe this is something that you'll report back to us on in terms of standardized testing at the younger grades. Like, is New York State bringing those skills in and assessing those earlier to get students ready for that kind of Regents work?
Yeah.
And for English, I just, sort of top of mind, policy-wise, has been the cell phone mandate, the no phones, no devices, no internet-enabled devices, and saw on the news that some schools are reporting an increase in library books checked out. And I wonder if we might be able to track and see if our students are perhaps
Yeah, that would be my pleasure.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
right? Looking, you mentioned student-led book clubs. What a great idea, right? If you don't have anything to scroll, that seems like a good use of the time. And in terms of, I think I asked my writing question already, and the building stamina and confidence. I just wanted to comment on that. I think that is really important. And again, from a pre-K, K-12 perspective, building those skills that do build on each other. If the student doesn't feel confident, it's going to be very hard for them to take on these tasks as they get older and they get more sophisticated. So thank you for keeping that in mind.
Thank you for the overview and the presentation. I have multiple things, so I'm just gonna, no particular order. I do think pointing out that the literacy is becoming sort of the bedrock of every exam. It's kind of amazing that all of the Regents have changed over the years, and if you're not a strong reader and writer as well, but all of them are so heavy on the reading and the decoding and that whole process. So I think recognizing and helping kids prepare for that is really important, and obviously it can't just start in high school, right? Those are the skills that we're building all along. And then there's also the balance between prepping for an exam, but also then creating a rich and varied experience in the classroom. So I guess my first question for both of you is, what are some of the ways, like in the first slide talked about how this is going to impact instruction. So can you give me just some concrete changes that kids would or parents would expect to see in the way that things are being delivered in the classroom as a result of the reviews and the changes that we're going through?
I'll start with that, and I appreciate you acknowledging the literacy, because it is a big piece, not just in science, but also in mathematics. With the change with Common Core was a big part of students need to be able to understand what they're reading, especially in math and science as well. So for mathematics, we're implementing the Building Thinking Classrooms instructional framework as an additional tool to use in the classroom, where students are going to get up out of their desks and be able to collaborate with students, demonstrate their thinking on whiteboards. It'll be randomized grouping. So it's a little bit more interactive for the students, but the most important piece is they're going to be able to work through the problem as a group and be able to explain what each other is thinking based on the work that they see. So one example, they may see or hear that at home from the students. We're also doing that from the elementary level all the way up through the high school level. So you can hear that K through 12. With science, is going to be a very major shift in what students will be seeing as instruction, especially with storylining. I've had the experience to be able to see it in practice, and it's an amazing tool to be able to get student interest and engagement, because the students are getting snippets of a situation as they progress through the unit that sparks their interest, sparks their curiosity. They have the opportunity to now see a little piece, a phenomena of a topic, generate questions based on that little piece because they're not getting all the information. And as they go through the unit, they'll be able to answer those questions based on what they've learned. But it's a motivation for the students to be engaged in what's going on. That's what they might do. It's a big, major instructional shift as opposed to getting the facts and then just regurgitating them. So that's what you're really going to see, especially with science.
So that's basically what I would say as well, that it's a shift from sort of the teacher-centered, teacher-directed instruction to more of a student-centered focus. You know, we've heard from the teachers themselves for years that they'd like to see students be more independent. So now there's a focus more on skills development, the strategies that they'll need to you know, progress along, like we talked about before, those progressions, more small group instruction, more student inquiry and investigation. So it very much aligns with what Guy was talking about with science and math.
And we'll see that K through 12, correct? I appreciate that. I think the more that students are having those opportunities to talk to each other, to engage in a different way, to just change things up, even the structure of the classroom, if it's rows, you know, if everyone's sitting in a row like this, it's creating a certain feeling in the room that does not lend itself to engagement and conversations. So I appreciate that. In that vein, one of the things that I would suggest for our science review this year, but also as we review other things, is to really think about how we are garnering feedback from our students and from our parents. The PTA Curriculum Committee is fantastic. I sat on that committee at one point. Like, it's a great liaison between parents and school, but it does not fully capture the experiences of everyone. And I would really like us to think about how we can get a little bit more feedback from a more varied group of parents. And then also, our students are, I mean, you guys know, they're super perceptive about what works for them and what they enjoy and what they're engaging with and what they have trouble with. I think that's like an untapped area of information that could elevate our instruction in general. And then one other just sort of compliment to the business department and one other thing to think about. So the business department just put out a survey asking for community volunteers to sign up if they were interested in coming to like talk to kids about their field and their expertise. And I think it would be great if we could offer the same for maybe science careers, which I think is something that kids don't have a lot of understanding about what majoring in science or being a scientist could really look like in the future. I think it's similar for everything. Like, English students think, what am I gonna do? Just like read books all day? Like, so if we could take that model and expand it, I think it would be great. And my final suggestion, Parent University would be a great place to like actively demonstrate some of what thinking classrooms is, like, or what the new science, you know, those are parents who they come out because they're really interested in what we're doing and they want to engage with what we're doing, and just having that as an option for people to see what their kids are experiencing, I think would be valuable to them. So thank you for all of your work and your time, and I'm good.
Janet, just to follow up on the survey responses, so we already had about, I think it was 58 responses from people that are board members at companies, to partners, to, vice presidents. It's been really, like, amazing to see how quick we got those responses. We had about 30 in about an hour and a half. So people are really out there, and this was a conversation that we already had with the business department and with Kelly Ramsey, who's kind of overseeing our outreach and our alumni development. And one of the things we talked about was at different times focusing on different areas of careers. So one of them could, I didn't specifically say science in the conversation, so we'll definitely focus on science, but we did talk about what are the other different types of careers that we could solicit feedback from. So we're really excited about that. We've also been growing the database for the alumni as well.
Thank you both. One thing, we're in year 4 of our cycle review, but clearly it's one of these things we're going to be doing consistently and all the time. So I know it's work, no matter what subject you're focusing on, and it's just a different stage. So I appreciate it. I know it's ongoing. And we've seen a lot of great things come out of these different committees and great collaboration among our teachers. So to that end, I guess where my kind of questions or comments are, and I love the partnership part of all of this and everything that you're talking about, what's coming out, what ideas are coming out of these reviews. So one that strikes me is, how are the reviews informing or helping our teachers write creative and innovative grants to places like the Ed Foundation and anywhere else, really? How can we encourage that through the information we're gathering here to encourage those, future partnerships? So I'm interested to hear how the teachers are initiating those grants, where that information's coming from, and if you feel like these reviews are helping them to kind of plan ahead.
Yeah, definitely. Not just the reviews, but the curriculum writing when it occurs and you have multiple people in a room and they're just bouncing ideas off of one another, and they're like, oh, let's think about doing this, or what about if we did that? So it's, whenever there's that collaborative environment, that's when those ideas flow. So I know especially the elementaries are always like, oh, I have 50 things, and they're asking Mr. Gavin what they're able to do. But yeah, we often encourage them to apply for the grants to make those ideas happen.
That's
Liz,
great.
don't we have a PD specifically for grant writing that's coming up for Ed Foundation where we talk about that? That's one of the options. I'm
Yes,
pretty sure that's a PD
That's great.
session
Yeah.
in the calendar. I don't remember what date it was, but I'm pretty sure I saw that in there.
I mean, you never want to leave money on the table, and I feel like grants are one of those things. There's a lot of money available, so, while Ed Foundation has been the most generous source of grants for us, there are so many opportunities for grants out there when it comes to education. So really, I see it on the higher ed side. You have to be in it to win it kind of thing. So I really want our teachers to embrace that concept and go out there and look for those grants, because there's so much extra you're getting from those partnerships that I can tell just from these cycles. So that's just a comment, I guess, more than a question. The other thing is, we're looking at this in different subjects, but we don't want it to become silos, where we're looking at these reviews in silos, and I'm sure there's a lot of interdisciplinary thought. But I guess that's another opportunity for grants, where we can kind of take these subjects and think about ways to make this, a holistic, interdisciplinary sort of approach for our students, so that we're not getting just the review cycle on this, but we want all the people who are working on these review committees to kind of interact with each other. I think that would be something, if we're not doing maybe a representative from each of the areas, collaborating would be a good way to kind of keep that going. Janet brought up science, and it was something on my mind too, because, Mr. Weiss, as an example, I know he's retired, and we have a lovely new research science person, which is great, and I'm so happy. That's a great example of a partnership that he had really solidified and created over a 20 or so year period. But those pre-college programs available, especially in science, I think are so impactful for students. We talk about how are they supposed to know who they want to be, but a 7-day or a 2-week or a 7-week program before they, maybe in their 10th grade, 11th grade year going in, as they're rising up, are really great. So that would just be another area of partnership, I think, we are doing a great job of kind of immersing ourselves in the local universities, but there are pre-college programs all over this country. And I think education is key for parents and just sharing that information. I don't know if it's part of college fair, but whatever we can connect to what we're finding in the review and how we can give those students opportunities, we'd rather them figure that out before they put themselves into these majors and into some of these schools you have to apply to a specific school within the college. I think that was a good model for science research, and I just would say if we could expand that to some of the other subjects, that would be great.
Absolutely.
And that's it, just a couple of comments. Thank you so much. I know this is a lot of work. I know you guys are working really hard, and I love your partnership together. It shows. Yeah, really, it does. And I appreciate that a lot. I love partnership, so thank you very much.
Thank you. I really appreciate that our reviews are rooted in continuous improvement. I think it's such an important frame in which to look at what we're doing. Like, we're doing well, but we can always be doing better, and there's always room for improvement. So I appreciate that, and I also appreciate the emphasis on making sure that our instruction is aligned with New York State's frameworks and standards across the content areas. Just a couple of questions I have. In looking through all 4 of these, I noticed that the majority of our work is K-12, but we have pre-K here as well. And I'm wondering, I guess, to what extent do we have control over the pre-K curriculum? I know that we outsource through the JCC.
Well, we do. We actually wrote the pre-K curriculum for the JCC for them to actually deliver. So a model that I had used in my previous district was something called the pre-K badge book, which took all of the pre-K standards and made it in very simplistic language where the kids would be, as they demonstrate skills, they would get like a badge that would go as like a sticker. It's an easy concept at the pre-K because you can either do it or you don't in terms of standards, right? So can they count to 1 to 10? You would get a badge. It's a little bit harder when you get to like 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade where the standards are, do they understand main idea? That's a little bit more difficult to quantify. But that's something that we have worked on. Trissy Broderick, who I talked about during Superintendent's Conference Day, has led that work, including writing the badge book itself and including providing professional development for the JCC teachers. Further, we've actually invited the JCC teachers to come to our PDs and come when we do something that's really focused on early childhood. So we've tried to take advantage of that. Some of the teachers that we've trained from the JCC are no longer with the JCC, so sometimes there's a little bit of staffing turnover that we have to constantly try to go back to. But we've definitely, and they've been very open first and foremost, but they're also a really good partner with us in terms of trying to partner and make sure that our professional learning that we do here is aligned with what the instruction they're giving down there.
Thank you, I appreciate that. Just in thinking about early childhood education, looking at psychology, children learn through play. And I think over time, a lot of early childhood education has moved away from that, where we have kids sitting in seats, at desks, at tables, and they're doing a lot of desk work, which doesn't align with their natural inclination as to how they learn. So I would love us to think a little bit more about what our practices look like pre-K, K1, 2, and thinking about how we can really integrate that pedagogy of play into what we're doing. Obviously, in line with all the things that New York State is asking us to do, which I recognize are vast. Like, it's a huge lift. But just really thinking about what our pedagogical practices look like at those age levels.
That's a great point, because I think some of the things that we do are not systemic, but when teachers just grab like an opportunity to do that kind of thing. So I was in Ms. Danino's class at Covert today for kindergarten, and I could tell you they were not at their desks. They were doing different things throughout the room as they were getting ready to transition for it was picture day.
Yeah.
So they were you could tell that they were ready to go to pictures.
Yeah.
But you could see the natural inclination of the 5-year-olds, who every single time for some reason they ask me if I'm the president. I don't really know why, but this is the 3rd kindergarten class this year that have asked me if I'm the president, which I say no. And they were very interested in my ID today for some reason. Like, they were like, "Is that you?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And then they were trying to read it, so it was very cute. But I thank Ms. Danino and all of her assistants in there for giving me a wonderful little visit to our kindergarten friends.
My second question relates to, I guess in ELA, math, and science, I noticed that we have consultants in all three of those areas. I know we've talked in the past about really trying to limit the amount of consultants we have. So I guess my questions are for, you know, Kate Roberts, for Annalise, for Brendan Schreibner, for All Species Consulting. What are the purposes of those consultants? And we don't have anyone in district who would be able to kind of replicate, or especially like Kate Roberts, who's been here for a while, that we can't be turnkeying that just from like a fiscal lens.
Well, I think that is the goal for us, is to train the trainers. So you'll see with Kate Roberts is that our elementary people are in a much better shape than they are at the secondary level, so we're expanding it this year to the secondary level so that we have more people to build capacity. And then the goal is to kind of take that capacity that we build internally and then spread it out for next year. So, but that'll be us. So we are continually evaluating the effectiveness of consultants. I'll give you another example. We have a new science research teacher. This, for the first time, this teacher is relatively new to the field and relatively young. And so what we wanted to do was provide her with a seasoned person, because there is so many moving parts with the science research program. I don't foresee the need for that 2 years from now, but while we're doing the first 2 years as we're building the program and trying to come across and develop those partnerships that Ms. Hackett talked about and make sure that we have those connections with labs, he has that acumen that she doesn't have that experience with, and that's really the goal for how that would work. Eventually, we could see that in 2 years, we don't need that consultant partnership anymore. It's the same thing with, you know, building thinking classrooms. As we expand up in terms of going up from 6 up to 12, we'll look to taper that off and have our own people do it. So I know that our math resource teachers at the elementary levels are excellent and understand that. They can certainly take over anything for building thinking classrooms at the elementary level.
And then my last question is a social studies question, and looking at AP Human Geography, and then specifically the Global 9 and 10 revision with the idea of conceptual units with a focus. I guess my question there is, what is the revision related to? Because I feel like the framework is very specific on what the content is that needs to be taught and what the skills are that need to be taught in 9 and 10. And while my child has not taken either of those, my understanding is there's more of like the issue really relies around pacing and content coverage. And I know when we get to 11th grade, we obviously have IB history, which is 2 years, that course. And I know that course really focuses kind of on like depth of topic, where your AP US course or your 11R course would really be more about like breadth of content, where it's like, you know, you're moving through history. So I guess my question is, are we trying to make 9 and 10 look more like an IB course? Are we keeping true to what the state says we're supposed to be doing there? Because that Regents does still sit at the end of 10th grade, and it is a difficult Regents. If we could just kind of walk through like what this revision is, what the purpose is, what the outcome would be.
Sure. So the work we're doing specifically in 9, as I mentioned, the opening units are meant to create that bridge, that alignment between AP Human Geography and Global 9, so that kids have that opportunity or that window to determine, you know, did I make the right choice for myself? Beyond that, we're looking to develop more conceptual style units, and even though the IB has always been founded on that, if you look at the social studies framework, they talk about like 3 major shifts. And I believe the first one is about that notion of moving from the content coverage to more of that conceptual foundation, where, you know, and you see that everywhere with the next gen science standards and everything, that kids have so much information at their fingertips, whether we like that or not. So helping them figure out how to identify those major concepts, find the bridges and the connections, where they don't have to know every single detail, but they need to be able to think at that higher level and make those connections and analyze and evaluate. So the state itself is encouraging that shift, or has been encouraging that shift, and we're making our way along with that.
I also think, to follow up, I think it talks about interdisciplinary connections more. So you see, like, the idea that Liz brought out before, where you are seeing this across the content areas, where they're looking more at a conceptual understanding rather than just rote memorization of facts. And while your point about we still have to know what we have to know by the end of the year because there's an exam, whatever that exam is, I think we can accomplish both at the same time, because we want our kids to be able to be those deep thinkers, to have those moments where I'm sitting in social studies class and they realize, hey, that's similar to what I learned in science 2 periods earlier. So that's why we've done the interdisciplinary units at the elementary level, and that's why we've gone from 3 to 5 and brought them down. That's why you see more connections between the disciplines at the middle school in terms of MYP units and unifying questions. And that's really what we're trying to bridge specifically in 9 and 10. So like if you think about us programmatically, 9 and 10 did not have the IB, but we did have MYP in 6 to 8. So what we're trying to do is build that bridge there between 9 and 10, elevate what we see in terms of the student thinking skills, and at the same time utilize something like Writing Revolution, where we are seeing a consistent approach in terms of instruction throughout the disciplines, so that students aren't, how do I have to do this in science versus how do I have to do this in social studies? So I think, you know, both Liz and Guy have done a really good job in trying to bridge multiple content areas at the same time. I mean, you could get lost in social studies and be only lost in social studies. And they do a really nice job trying to get between multiple contents. And so I think you see that not only in what we want for our student experience, but we also see that in terms of the teacher. We want our teachers to be able to make those connections as well.
Yep, I appreciate that. I think my only reservation, you know, in that, and also really in the 11th grade courses too, and I'm not like a content person where, you know, the focus is on we need to get through content.
Right.
I'm much more rooted in like, we need to know the skills of social studies, we need to be doing the history. But there is, because we have those exams, unfortunately, you never want to teach to an exam, but it's really hard when you get to a Regents and the essay is on a topic you didn't cover. You know, so like that coverage piece is really important. And yeah, I mean, the framework has been in existence since 2017 as it is, with these ideas of concepts where, yeah, you can move through it in a linear way or you can chunk ideas. My focus is just in those courses that we're not doing any kind of disservice to getting the kids the content that they need so that they can, you know, be successful historians, but
I think our faculty would agree with you.
Yeah.
I think our faculty, you know, one of the conversations, I mean, one of the conversations we have all the time is, especially in a course like Global, where you're covering such a vast amount of history, is that how do we pace this appropriately? So that's part of the review as well.
Yeah.
Are we getting to all the components that we need to get to in the time that we need to get to them? And then there's always the one-off, like I spent 2 days on the Russian Revolution and the essay happened to be on it this year, you know, that kind of thing. So
or Turkish history.
what?
Or Turkish history.
Turkish history, that was that last year?
Yeah.
That was last year. So those kinds of things we constantly are trying to prepare our kids for, but that's also why we try that conceptual understanding. So maybe they get a document that they haven't seen before in terms of Turkish history, but they can apply to some sort of an understanding that they've taken from the Russian Revolution.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you both. Turning to policies, tonight at stage 1, we have 5676, privacy and security for student data, teacher, and principal data.
Yeah, so we pulled, as we've been going through the policy manual to make sure everything is up to date, we pulled this and consulted with not only our attorneys, but also our internal director of technology, cleaned up the language a little bit, no substantial changes other than making sure that it is in compliance and that the links actually go where they're supposed to go.
Okay, thank you. Is everybody okay to move this to stage 2 at the next meeting?
Yep.
Just a note, this evening, the other 2 policies that we currently have at stage 1, 5683 and 5690, we're going to discuss them now, but then in a moment, after we move through the rest of the policies that are on the agenda this evening, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve to waive the second reading of policies 5683 and 5690. So Dr. Downey, do you mind just walking us through the rationale as to why?
Yes, so we pulled policy 5683, which is about the automated external defibrillators, the AEDs, to make sure that we had a reading of this with our attorneys. And Mrs. Gruner and I looked through to make sure that it was in compliance with the new New York State provision called DESHA's law, to make sure that the cardiac response plans were as they should be. And so since this law is in effect and our policy has not substantially changed, I would be in agreement with waiving the second reading and moving this right to approval. For 5690, similarly, this is exposure control. Again, just regulations with OSHA, and these are procedures that Ms. Dalton and our facilities folks have reviewed and made sure that we are following. So similarly, no substantial changes that I think would require a second read.
Okay, thank you. Currently at stage 2, we have 5650, energy, water conservation, and recycling of solid waste. Are we okay to move this to stage 3?
Yep.
5674, data access and security access. Okay to move this as well?
Yep.
Currently at stage 3, we have 4212, Rockville Center organizational chart. Okay to move this to approval at the next meeting? Okay.
Yes.
5670, records management. Move to approval as well? 5671, disposal of consumer information and records. Okay to move this.
Yes.
And 5680, safety and security. Okay to move this as well.
Yes.
Thank you to the policy committee for all your work. May I have a motion to approve to waive second reading of policies 5683 and 5690?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve actions G1 through I8?
So moved.
Second? Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Oh, one note before we adjourn, the next meeting is going to be October 3rd, which is different than what we had originally had on our district calendar. So please note that's Friday, October 3rd, and that will be a regular meeting. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Happy birthday, Ms. Rehack. Have a good night.
Happy birthday. Go Bills.